All right, home slices of Legion Hub. This is your host, Gary Gardner again. I wanted to give you a day in the life, in essence. And so this is like post your training requirements, post setting yourself up as a contractor. And so I think this video will be used for two things. One, if somebody's considering joining us at LGH and wants to see what a day in the life will look like. And then two, if you're wondering yourself what your day-to-day should look like, I think you can review this and it should be pretty clear. But once again, this is for after you have done training, not only on LGH in general, right? So like all the tools we use and everything else, and then also the individual client training. And so just as a reminder, before anybody comes to starts working on a client, they should, number one, go through basically the 5 videos, which this being a part of it, right? Go through the 5 videos of how the work is conducted from a point of lead gen hub stance and good business development. And then following that, when you choose which client you are going to represent, you should have done that training, and that should take like 2 or so hours. So that being said, on your day-to-day, what it should look like when you effectively log in to your, again, the day-to-day of LGH is really, you should have a couple things up. It should be Orem. I have my I have Orem up. I have the lead gen internal site just for standard information. I have my time card up because why not? So I don't forget to fill it out when I'm done. And then I have my relationship map, my Lucid chart. I also have that up. And so really, I mean, again, when you've already done the training, this should become obvious to you. You're simply going to log in as you normally would, and you are going to be assigned a list, and that list is going to be about roughly 100 ICPs. If we change the list on you, obviously you'll know proactively. But the intent is that you simply log in, you go to the list to which we have assigned, which I would go to my dialer. Let's pretend that I was DeAndre. If I was DeAndre King and I was working on Veritas and this was my prep list, and so we'll have names for lists. If we're going to call it a prep list, it's simply going to be, hence the name, a list for like warm-ups, right? So if it's a new client and you don't want to talk to like ICPs that we have spent more time on trying to find and give that information of, then you can do like a warm-up list, which is kind of randomized, right? So it's just a little bit easier. So I go in, I click, and then I can see all of my folks that I want to dial. And again, you own the list, right? So you're not going to redial them unless you set it up to redial them. When you do your Orem training, you should know about dispositions. You should know about that kind of stuff. And then you should be good to go in that regard. But you own the list, and then so when once you start to call and the list is done, of course, as we all hope, you start to schedule meetings. Now, each client is going to have their way of wanting to schedule those meetings, but 90% of the time they're going to be more or less the same. And so hopefully we get them 100% the same at some point. But in Veritas's situation, you would have a company email and then you would go and book those meetings. But at the same time, you should also have your Lucid chart open, right? So as you are starting to collect information, as you know, not every call is going to be a meeting, okay? But most calls should be conversations to get you to that better meeting, collect information, collect intel, right? So that you sound more credible as you go through. So that being said, you should have your Lucid chart out, and you should be adding to it every time you're doing calls. If you're not, then talk to me, and let's figure out why that is, or why, like what that technique, or why it's important to be doing that. And then you on occasion, during your day-to-day, you're obviously going to book the meetings. We also want you to go to the post, pre, and during meeting optimally. And I talk about that in another video, but ideally you are going to a 10-minute pre-meeting with your executive, the meeting itself that you set with the prospect, and then a post meeting, which again is the combination of like, where do we go with this account? Why are we going after this account, et cetera, and so forth. And then when you're done, it should look something like this. I think everybody's going to have a bit of a timesheet, right? And when you're looking at your timesheet, quite simple, right? Name in the upper left-hand corner, Gary Gardner. These are the days that I worked. These were the hours that I worked. This is what I did. So I spent, on the 14th, 2.5 hours doing my training for path formance, pretending that that was my, if that's the client that I'm going to work with. And then after that, on the 15th, the next day, I did 1.5 hours of calling. I did some scheduling on LinkedIn. I booked one meeting. I did some not scheduling on LinkedIn, excuse me, but I did some scheduling. I went on LinkedIn, did some research, but overall, I spent 1.5 hours. And then 11/16, I had a little bit more time, so I did 2.5 hours. I scheduled another meeting, but during that period of time, I also did attended one of my meetings, and I added to my relationship map and all that good stuff. So you definitely want to put in what meetings you schedule. I think that's important, right? I mean, we can easily figure it out on the other side, but just in case, like if we ever have a discussion about specific ones, there's no argument, right? And I think that's important. Not that there would be argument anyway. The other thing too, just keep in mind when I do start to pay you on a weekly basis, what I do is, yes, I look at your standard timesheet, but that's mostly for like training things. I'm gonna mostly pay folks off of what I see on the date filters. So, for example, if I go to this week and I go to all reps, if I'm going to pay, Eddie, for example, or Christine, for example, as you'll see that pops up here, I see Christine, she did 93 dials. She was logged in, her session time was 58 minutes. I'm going to round that up, right? So that would be paid for an hour, and then whatever else she says on her timesheet, I'll compile that and put it all together. So that is the intent. That is a summary of kind of what you should expect day to day. Again, really important, right? It should be that simple. You log in, you see your list, you've done the training, and you enjoy the hunt, like that's what we hope for. And it should be that simple. So thank you very much. That concludes the quick summary. And of course, if you have any questions, go ahead and let myself, Rivers, Mikkel, or really anybody, Austin, or anybody on the team know. All right. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.